Peter. We have participants slowly coming in. So I might get started. Thank you everybody for being here this evening. Tonight you're here to join us in the Ready for School webinar. And so this is where Early Ed and our presenters for the evening are partnering with families to help you support your children be ready for learning. I'm Belinda, and I will be co-hosting this evening with my colleague Peter. We are both special educators and behaviour practitioners with Department of Ed. So thank you everybody for joining us. Next slide. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. So to start this evening, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which we gather today. I am here on Darug land, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and extend respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that might be joining us today. I honour their continuing connection to the land, waters, and the community. Thank you, Peter. So just to let everybody know, tonight's webinar is going to be recorded. We have two functions that you can use. Generally, the chat function is if you have any technical difficulties. However, one of our presenters will be encouraging you to talk to us during the presentation through this chat function. So they will let you know when they're ready for that to happen. We also have the Q&A. If you have any questions that you want any of the presenters to answer this evening, please put the question in the Q&A. The presenters will endeavour to try and answer your questions throughout the night. Whatever questions don't get answered, we will come back to at the end of the evening. Further to that, if we still have run out of time and haven't answered your questions, Early Ed will follow this up with you later on in the week to make sure that all your questions have been answered. There will be two polls run this evening. The first poll will just have one question that we will ask all participants to answer. And the second poll we will run at the end of the evening, and that will have two questions that we will ask all participants to answer. Further to that, at the end of the evening, we will have a survey, and we ask you all to kindly spend a few minutes completing that survey, because it's your feedback that helps us improve, that helps us determine what future presentations we should be doing, what information you are seeking, and just overall help the continuous improvement of these webinars, which we run on an annual basis for free to all our families. So please take the time to complete the survey at the end of the evening as well. Next slide. Okay, the first poll. I am going to try and launch the first poll. And unless you can somehow get to that, stop sharing for a moment and get to that, Peter, because it's not coming up for me, unfortunately. Thank you, Peter. Wonderful. Okay, that's great. So in terms of how confident do you feel in supporting your child to be ready for school? We have a few who are feeling very confident. That's wonderful. And again, more feeling confident. And we've got quite a lot not feeling confident yet. So I really hope that that reduces by the end of the night by attending this evening, and some are not sure. Excellent. We really appreciate those results, and I hope that we can see improvements by the end of the webinar. So there's those results. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for launching that. So what is the purpose of this evening's session? We have three main focuses. One is to support your understanding in ways that you can help your child be ready for learning. So that is be ready for school. Now that may be, some of you may have children that you're considering sending next year. Some may be considering sending children the following year in 2027. Or some may even have very young children and you just want to get in there early, which is a wonderful thing to do. But tonight we'll give you ways that you can support your child in being ready for learning. You'll receive up-to-date information from all school systems to support the transition to school process, both for your children and for yourselves as parents. And you will know that there are supports available and how you can access these in each of the systems. Thank you, Peter. One of the most important things for you to know as parents is you are not alone in this journey. Generally, you will have a whole team around your child, some more than others. But as you can see, in the little orange circle is your child, and they are the centre of this circle. Around your child is the family. That may be yourselves, it may be extended family. But that's the main key support for that child. You are your child's advocate, your main support. Around you as a family, there are a bigger community. So that may be extended family, or it may be church communities, it may be friendship and sporting communities, it may be the schooling community, it may just be a community of online supports as well, where you get information. So that there is a community around you that you can try and access and know that it exists in various forms to help you along this journey as well. With the child and the family getting support and the community around them, we also sometimes have a larger early intervention team. So that includes therapists, it includes support workers, it could be medical teams as well. But there is a big team around the child so that your child and you are not alone in this journey. Thank you, Peter. Preparing children for school is a lifelong process. It starts from birth. Those two-way sounds and interactions and moments that you have with your child start that learning process of communicating, of taking turns, of engaging, focusing, concentrating, responding. And then it goes on as your child gets older and you become more involved. But a lot of people also see it as those last few years before school, where you're really focusing on skills that they may need for that next step in life and how to support your child transition from preschool development to school and learning at school. But it's not only getting your child ready. There's a lot of other components that we want to be ready to help your child and you in this journey. To start off with, at the top, we've got a ready family. So attending webinars like tonight is a wonderful thing for you to be doing, thinking about what school options are available, what skills your child might need, how you can help them get those skills, what supports are in place, how can we access those supports, finding out as much information and putting that in place as much as you can to support your child and for you to be ready in knowing what to do in this journey. We also want a ready early childhood service. So if your child is attending a preschool or a long day care or even a play group of some sort, getting them involved in the journey to do what they can do to support your child in what skills they might need to be ready for learning as well. Your ready community. So know what supports you and your child need in this schooling process. Like I said, it could be supports for you to help with school drop-offs or pickups or preparing foods, or it could be other families to talk to about what school will look like, what do we do as parents, how do we get involved. It could be sporting communities as well, in how your child might get involved in social skills and things like that. So involving other people in that support yourself and your child in this journey, getting them ready for that step as well, will help your child be ready for learning. And then finally, school ready. Getting your school ready for your child as well. It's not only the child ready for school, but what information does the school need that can help your child be ready? Are there individual learning preferences that your child has? Are there medical needs that they need to be aware of? What does the school need to know to be ready to take on your child in that learning process as well? So as you can see, there's a lot of readiness that needs to happen for your child to be ready for learning.
5 minutes.
Thanks, Peter. Here are some links that you can also access. So throughout the night, Peter will be putting those in the chat. You can go to them directly and access information from there so that you're ready in this process as well. Next slide, thank you, Peter. Ask for help if you're concerned. Do not be afraid to access what supports there are available. Ask teachers if you have any therapists involved. You don't have to attend, you don't have to be a part of this journey on your own, especially if you do have concerns. Whether it's developmental concerns or whether it's just general concerns in yourself, ask your supports. If there are deeper concerns, you can access NDIS. There are various forms, various pathways of NDIS. Some will, your child will be eligible for funding, and some your child will just be eligible for early supports, but you can access those as well. Don't forget community health nurses. You don't have to stop and just go to them when it's immunisation time. You can access their supports. They are very well informed on child development as well. There are also free play groups, and your local school can give you supports as well. Thank you, Peter. Might jump ahead to the next slide. Thanks, Peter. So we will put this link. Early Ed is bringing this evening through Start Strong pathway fundings, but we also offer free support to families through Start Strong that you can access on the Early Ed website. So the first two boxes, learn to play, play to learn, and active play, active learning, are two services. One is more indoor, one, the active play, is more using the outdoor natural environment on things you can do at home that are low cost or no cost, and how you can use opportunities of play at home to make them teachable moments for your child. Again, they're low cost or no cost, so it's most things that families can access. And you can also join Facebook and Instagram for ideas on those activities as well. Ready to Learn Individual Supports is a program that we offer for children before they start school. If you have some concerns about your child's development or about participating in, say, story time, group time, following instructions, those kind of things, you may be eligible for up to 3 sessions with a special educator from Early Ed, one-to-one, 45 minutes for free, to support you and your child through that process. We have a toy library. It is in the northern suburbs of Sydney, New South Wales, but you can access that online as well. Our interactive story time, which runs online, runs every Thursday, and you can register for those online story times. There's songs, stories. It's quite inclusive as well. So that's another opportunity for you to also build your skills on the way you can support your children before school. Target Word is a free program for early communicators. If you are having difficulties, or if your child, I should say, is having difficulties with communication, Target Word is a Hanen program, and you may also be eligible for that. My Time is a free parent-supported play group for families who have children with delays or disabilities, and it runs sessions for families as well as children. Thank you, Peter. Please access the Ready to Learn Together free resources on our website. There are resources in English and many other languages. There's written resources and there's videos. But this website will give you many tips that are presented to you by parents, teachers, interventionists, community workers on things you can do to support your child be ready for learning. They are short, simple tips that are very practical and come to you from the community themselves. It's another free resource, and we will put the link to that page in the chat throughout the night as well. Thank you, Peter. We will ask for your feedback at the end of the evening. But what I will do, if you can just go to the slides with the presenters, please, Peter. Thank you. I'm just going to give you a brief introduction, but the presenters will introduce themselves. Tonight from Association of Independent Schools, we have Leanne starting off the evening. That will be followed by the Department of Education, where Alison will be presenting for the evening, and then we'll finish off with our Catholic education system, where Helen and Jolanne will be presenting for this evening. So thank you, Peter. We can stop sharing, and I will invite Leanne to start us off. Participants, just so you know, with the Q&A, Leanne will be here doing her presentation, but then does have to leave. So if you do have a question specific to Leanne that we don't get to answer tonight, we will definitely forward that to her on your behalf, and it will be followed up.
Great.
So we've got that's it. Thanks, Leanne.
All right. You can see my screen okay, Belinda?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm just going to move you down here. So welcome. My name is Leanne Woodley, and I work at the Association of Independent Schools. So tonight I'm just going to run through very quickly really what an independent school is, and I guess where you can find your local independent school. So an independent school, really, the best way to describe it is that we have our government schools that you would be familiar with your local government schools. We have our Catholic school colleagues here, and a Catholic school is one that's usually owned and operated under a diocese. An independent school is just that. It's independent and it's governed, I guess, on its own. So we call them, rather than independent schools, we often talk about non-government schools. And often our independent schools are affiliated sometimes with a particular philosophy of education or a particular faith-based school. Usually most independent schools are K-12 schools. So you often enroll in kindergarten and it will go all the way through into year 12. Our independent schools in New South Wales, some of them are single-sex schools, some of them are co-ed schools. Some of them range from very big, large schools that you're probably very familiar with in and around Sydney. And some of our independent schools are very, very small. I've just come from an independent school today that only has about 80 students in the school. So they can be very large and very small and very varied types of schools. Each independent school is quite autonomous. So there are some things the same across all sectors, and independent schools are not I guess, exempt. So we do follow the same legislation in terms of disability legislation. And all independent schools also follow all of the regulations that go with schooling and follow NESA advice and syllabuses. So there are definitely some same things, but the independent schools, as I said, are autonomous and they have their own processes and procedures, and they're usually accountable to a school board rather than a system of schools. And because of that, most independent schools will have their own individual school policies and procedures, and they will also have varied services and resources. So I often say no independent school looks the same. They all look very different. And again, you might be thinking some of our independent schools are around Montessori schools, Steiner schools. We also have some special assistance schools that cater for students with social and emotional needs. And we also have schools that are for specific purposes. So you may know of some of the aspect schools. And so that would be an example of an independent school that meets the needs of just students with disabilities. So where do you go to find an independent school? You can go onto the AIS NSW website, and down the bottom of the website, you'll find what's called a school finder. And you will come up with a page that looks like this. And you just pop into the search function, perhaps where you live, what sort of school you would like, and the list of school names appears here. So this is the easiest way to find an independent school in the area that you might be looking for. And you can see there in this image is a picture of Sydney and just how many there are. In actual fact, we support over 500 independent schools across New South Wales. So again, I can pop this link into the chat for you just before I duck out. And that will be the easiest way for you to find an independent school in your local area. A little bit about AIS. We are the peak body that supports independent schools. And I work for a team called Student Services. And our job is really to provide support in terms of supporting young people with diverse needs and disabilities. And so our service includes things like supporting the schools with the collaborative planning process, making adjustments for students with needs, behaviour support, support with wellbeing and mental health. So just like the other systems have supports and services, independent schools would access the services at AIS for their needs, I guess. And we really tailor what the school has requested to that. So let's talk about enrolling a student in an independent school. I guess the first step is really find the independent school that you might be interested in. Contact that school directly to request an enrolment package or to request a site visit. There's no point coming to the AIS as because we don't hold that information. You need to contact the school directly. You would obviously then complete the enrolment form and application and provide some documentation. And of course, most schools will require an interview, ask you to come along for an interview with your child to learn a little bit more about your child and how the school can support. So we would always say engage directly with the principal first, or the principals. Most of the schools will have an enrolments officer. So contact those people and have a discussion with them. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, supporting students with disabilities in terms of accessing school. And I guess some of the important things that I would like to share with you on behalf of all of our colleagues here today is really to be proactive. I think it's really important nights like this to gather information, but also to be proactive in terms of selecting the school that you may be interested in. And you might want to look at a couple of different schools for different options. So meet with that school early. I often say check out their website. You can learn a lot from a school by their website. Drive past, have a look to see what it's like, and then perhaps organise a visit. Just because you make an inquiry and want to visit a school doesn't mean you have to decide that that's the school for your young person. So do a little bit of homework about schools and what the options are. When you, I think, settled on a school, I think it's very important to kind of be open and honest and share as much information as you can, because the school really does want to understand your child's needs in order to work out what the right adjustments are, what the right supports are, and to ensure a really smooth transition to school. And that transition is going to look different based on different children's needs and based on the information that you can share with the school. I think the thing to remember is it's very much a partnership, and it's bringing along all the information and bringing along your external therapist and that team that Belinda talked about into this collaborative planning process at this point of enrolment to really help understand what needs to happen for your child. And ask questions, ask lots of questions about how can the school support my child? What supports do you provide? What does a kindergarten class look like? How many children? What supports can be available from the learning support or diverse learning team at the school? How can I be involved in my child's planning? Who else at the school can be involved in the transition process for my young person? How can we communicate together? So don't be afraid to make a list of questions and take them along during that interview process, because the more that you're prepared for sharing the information and asking questions, the more that partnership of trust will build between you and the school. So in terms of transition, it's going to look different at different schools. But I think some of the key things to remember is that sharing of information, and that, you know, children's experience at school is going to be very different depending on the type of school that you pick. But thinking about preparing young people for school, I think as parents, it's very different, I guess, from a play group or an early childhood setting where they may have different teachers. They'll be doing things like music and art, different subject areas, and what might that look like? And so a good question to ask is, what does it look like in a day in kindergarten for children at this school? You know, do they have different art teacher, different PE teacher from their literacy and numeracy teacher? So really thinking about what that process looks like. So I guess some of the things that you might be able to do at home, and Belinda alluded to some online resources that might help with this as well, in preparing your child for a smooth transition. Things like lunch boxes, you know, practice opening lunch boxes, practice opening food packages, Glad wrap, you know, you wrap their sandwiches in Glad wrap. Can they open those things? Can they take the lid off a drink bottle? So these are little things that you can be practicing now leading up to them beginning school. Personal care skills. So teaching your child how to perhaps use a community bathroom. So can our boys go into a cubicle and use the bathrooms there? You know, can our girls make sure the door is closed, for example? So does your child have these skills, and can you be practicing them now? Can they take their own jumper off, put their own jumper on, put their jumper in their bag? Little things like this can be really helpful. They'll also be wearing a school uniform. So, you know, what is that school uniform? So, for example, just working with a young person at the moment with autism that's finding wearing the knitted wool jumper, school jumper, very itchy. So what are some accommodations and adjustments we might need to make? You know, can we get a sloppy Joe? I don't know if they're called sloppy Joes anymore, but, you know, the pullovers, same school color, but just a different fabric. So, you know, can they put their shoes and socks on? Those sorts of things are little things that we can be doing now to support. Listening to games. We know that there's a lot of sitting and listening often in kindergarten. So can we be playing games at home together that involve listening to instructions, 1 or 2 step instructions? And again, what does that look like? Practicing perhaps some calming techniques. So, you know, teaching them the breathing techniques, things to calm down. So the little boy I was working with today, he taught me about box breathing, where you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. And so he was practicing his boxed breathing today, just as he was coming into the classroom, just to get himself ready for learning after some extended time in the playground. Reading books together And again, I was in the principal's office today, and I was delighted to see there were so many picture books about starting school that she had on her shelf. And she said, oh, I share these with the families when they come in for their interviews. So again, lots of books, reading books and listening to books, and perhaps choosing some books that are about starting school. And thinking about visual routines and checklists. So, you know, school is a bit of a structure to a school day. So maybe you can start a visual checklist or a structure at home. I get up, we have breakfast, we get dressed, we go to daycare or we go to preschool, we come home. So practicing some of those scheduling things can be supportive of learning those routines for school. So a few things that you might be able to do to help that transition. But the other thing to be thinking about too, as parents, sort of educating yourself, if it is the first time you are sending a little person in your family to school, sort of understanding, I guess, what are some of those terminologies that you're going to hear at school. So you're going to hear things about key learning areas. What is that when they talk about that? You might be hearing things about individual plans, IPs, ILPs. So there may be some things that you can do to educate yourself around preparing for school. And again, some of those resources Belinda shared look fabulous to be able to do this. I was going to share some resources, but Belinda's already captured many of these resources. And so again, these are a really good place to start in terms of educating yourself as parents about getting ready for school. So getting, as Belinda said, getting the school ready for your child, getting you as a parent ready for them to go to school, but also to helping your child learn some of those routines around school. So just as I finish up, the first point of call is always contact your local school for that support and information that you need. If you get stuck, there is the school finder at that website. And if you really, really do get stuck and you need a bit of help and guidance in navigating how to find an independent school, there's a phone number there on the screen and you can ring that as well. And so that's, I guess, some of the key messages around looking at an independent school for your young person.
Great, Leanne. Thank you. Thank you for presenting that. And just to capture some of the key points that you said, the transition will look different for every child in every school. So please, when you are seeking support from other people who may have gone through the journey, it doesn't mean that that's what your journey is going to look like. So thank you for pointing that out, Leanne.
Thank you.
And in regards to the visual routines and checklists, as adults, we keep shopping lists, or I keep a notes list on my phone. We have a to-do list. We use calendars. They're our visual reminders and schedules. Children need reminders and schedules too. So if they can't read, yes, little photos of the steps of things they need to do in the morning is a wonderful idea. We all need prompts and reminders. So thank you for bringing that up as well, Leanne. That's really appreciated.
So I've just popped into the chat the link for that AIS Independent School Finder, because sometimes finding that link can be the first challenge. So I've just popped that in the link for you.
That's great. Thank you so much for that, Leanne.
Thank you.
And I'm conscious that you need to go to other commitments. So thank you very much for presenting this evening. It was a pleasure hearing you speak.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Families, I can see that there are some questions coming in, but what I'll do is, as the presenters are sharing information, some of them might be answered. Again, if they're not, we will go to them at the end of the evening and have a chat with our presenters as well. So thank you. I now hand over to Alison from the Department of Education. Alison, thank you.
Thanks, Belinda. And I know you're going to share my slides for me.
Yes, I am.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just did have a look in the Q&A, and I think, well, for the Department of Education, we might be answering one of the questions that's to do with when my child should be starting school with compulsory school age. So hopefully that might answer And if not, we can come back to it at the end.
I will put it in slide mode.
Thank you. That would be fabulous.
My little screen is covering the slide mode, unless I can do that through here.
Not working at your end, Belinda, or?
I'm sorry, it's
That's
not.
okay. It just to put into presenter mode, it should.
I don't know what I've done now. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
There is a little area down the bottom to put it in that mode. However,
It should just, once you go into slideshow,
it's just not cooperating with me. So there we go. I'm sorry about that.
that's okay, not a problem. Thank you for sharing. Terrific. So my name's Alison Bovang. I work with the Department of Education. I'm a Learning and Wellbeing Officer. I'm a part of what's called Team Around a School with the Department of Education. So we support a network of schools to meet the needs of students across areas such as learning and wellbeing, disability and inclusion, mental health, behaviour, attendance. We look at transition, Aboriginal support. So I work across a network of 19 schools in northern Sydney where I support both primary schools and high schools. So that's a little bit about Team Around a School and my role as a learning and wellbeing officer. I'm just going to start tonight by doing an acknowledgement of country. I would like to recognise the ongoing custodians of the lands and waterways where we work and live. I pay respect to elders past and present as ongoing teachers of knowledge, songlines and stories. I strive to ensure every Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander learner in New South Wales achieves their potential through education. Thanks, Belinda. So the slide that's up on the screen at the moment, it's a bit like when the independent sector was talking about locating your school. So the New South Wales Department of Education has also a school finder. And again, I'll pop that link in throughout the evening. So you need to seek enrolment at your local school. To find your local school, use this website. You just need to Google the school finder and enter your address and it will bring up your local school. So if you haven't done that already and you're looking for your local Department of Education school, that's your best start, is to get onto that school finder website and it will give you all of the information that you need. Thanks, Belinda. So the slide that's up on the screen at the moment is looking at your application to enrol in a New South Wales government school. So this was one of the questions that was in the chat in reference to the age in which a student needs to start. So all children must be in compulsory schooling by their 6th birthday. Children can start kindergarten at the beginning of the school year if they turn 5 on or before the 31st of July that year. Students should start school at the beginning of the school year. And your best point of contact is to reach out to your local school and to discuss enrolment procedures, and the office staff and everyone within that school will be able to answer your questions. Everything you also need to know is on the website, so you can also locate information. And I will provide a link in our handout through the Department of Education that will give you information. Now, there are some exemptions, and this is what somebody had asked in the chat. We do have exemptions from enrolment, and they may be granted in specific circumstances and where the Executive Director for the Department of Education considers it to be in the best interest of the child. So there are 2 reasons an exemption from enrolment may be granted. The first is age. So where a child turns 6 years on or after the 1st of October or later in a school year and is engaged in full-time preschool education at an accredited preschool for the remainder of that year, or they are in full or part-time preschool programs for students with disabilities, leading to enrolment and full-time attendance at a government or registered non-government school, not later than 6 months after that child's 6th birthday. So you would be required to provide proof of enrolment or participation at a preschool, and the child should be involved in a transition to school program as a condition of their exemption. The second reason that an exemption would be given to a child starting school would be around health, learning, or the social needs or disability of a child, necessitating the continuation of an individual program that would be supported by medical specialists, and again, not longer than 6 months after the child's 6th birthday. Thanks, Belinda. Now, I'm just going to look at what your early childhood education and care service completes what's called with the Department of Education a transition to school digital statement in the year before they start school. This statement provides information about your child's strengths, their interests, and their preferred ways of learning. It is then shared online with your child's school to help teachers prepare for kindergarten students coming to their school and support and continue those ways of learning. We're just going to watch a really short video that talks about a successful transition to school and the transition to school digital statement that you will hear your early childhood educators refer to for your children. So I'm just going to share my screen for that one, Belinda. I thought it might be easier. And
starting school is a big milestone in a child's life, and a positive transition to school can have a real impact on their longer-term academic, social, and well-being outcomes. In the year before kindergarten, strong relationships and planning between schools, families, and early childhood education and care services are essential for supporting a child's transition to school.
We know that the impact for a successful transition is that students come in and are much more confident in the school environment and ready to learn, and it really does set them up to be those lifelong learners moving forward throughout their primary years and beyond.
I was so excited to go to school because I was going to learn new friends. I was very excited to learn math.
Parents are very much a part of our transition process. They're the keepers of the information on their child. And so we do everything we can to get that information from the parents through interviews and through information sessions. The transition to school digital statement is easily accessible, and it gives you a lot of information about each individual student that's coming to school directly from the early childhood settings, where they're spending a lot of their time prior to that year of school. It is also highly valuable for our learning support team teachers and our assistant principals of early stage 1, as it gives them that detailed information before the students enter our school site.
I was so inspired watching my son's preschool get him ready for school and a thirst for learning. He was ready to learn because of the work the preschool and the kindergarten teachers did.
We all have a role to play in supporting every child to have a positive transition to school as they start their journey into kindergarten and beyond. To learn how you can help prepare children for a life of learning, visit our website.
thanks, Belinda. I will just stop sharing at my end. Thank you. So as you can see in that video, the teacher and the principal refer to the transition to school digital statement. So the statement provides information, like I spoke about, that talks about your child's strengths, interests, and preferred ways of learning. This is really useful, the statement, because it aligns with the early years learning framework outcomes. It can be used to complement other important activities, such as information and orientation sessions that a lot of you will be heading to soon, school preparation, family engagement, and also the Best Start kindergarten assessment. So together they can help provide schools with information to get to know the child that's entering the classrooms, help students settle into their new school environment, begin to plan appropriate teaching and learning programs. It provides an opportunity for early childhood educators to share knowledge of the child in their setting and to document information for the learning and development of particular children. The statement then provides an opportunity for school staff in New South Wales Department of Education schools to engage with those early education services, to identify children who might require additional support when they enter school, to also plan tailored and additional transition visits if they're needed. They can also find out which strategies have been effective for a particular child. So you should be having conversations with your early childhood settings, because you would, and we just need to go to the next slide as well. So as a parent, you will be asked to sign a consent for the digital statement that would go through to a school. So it's mandated for services that are accessing Start Strong funding. However, we do encourage all our early childhood and education care services to use the statement to support continuity of learning and facilitate a successful transition to primary school for all students. We also encourage early childhood education and care services to collaborate with parents, carers, allied health professionals and schools to address the unique needs of children that might require additional support. For some children, this may involve providing an interim statement or a summary of relevant information for parents or carers to communicate. As the commencement date for school approaches, a final transition to school digital statement can be generated. So what you can see here on this slide is a consent form. You do not need to give consent if you do not feel that that's something you would like to do. However, you can see from the video and from what I've spoken about how useful it is for your child's primary school to have that information shared. Next slide. Thanks, Belinda. Best Start Kindergarten Assessment provides teachers with an opportunity to sit with your child one-on-one. So when your child starts at their local primary school, the Best Start Kindergarten Assessment will take place at school in Term 1. It is a statewide assessment that helps show teachers the literacy and numeracy skills of each student at the beginning of kindergarten. It helps teachers to plan lessons to best support the learning needs of every child in their class. Children come to school, as we know, with a range of experiences, skills and abilities. So some are familiar with books, can recognise letters of the alphabet and write their names. Some can count to 10, while others have not yet learnt these skills. The Best Start Kindergarten Assessment provides teachers with the opportunity to sit with a child one-on-one, focusing on what that child can do. The assessment is not a test, but provides teachers with useful information that can then help support your child's learning at school. If you wish to withdraw your child from participating in the assessment, then that's a conversation that you can have with the school prior to your child starting kindergarten or at the beginning of the school year. Thanks, Belinda. Now, Belinda also in her presentation at the beginning also showed you this model of a team around your child at school, where we have your child in the centre, but those supports that are in the school to support your child, you and the school are a team with a common goal of ensuring that your child connects, succeeds and thrives at school. If you have information that will assist the school to best support your child, you need to speak with the school. Your first port of call is always your child's classroom teacher. I always say, as a teacher with the Department of Education for over 25 years, it's probably best not to get them as they're walking in the door with the kids in the morning or straight away in the afternoon, but to arrange a time that works for everyone so you can have a meaningful conversation about how best to work together to support your child. Thanks, Belinda. As I said in the beginning, I work in what's called Team Around a School with the Department of Education. So student wellbeing support works in partnerships with schools to tailor support for students with additional learning and wellbeing needs. And the term that we use with schools is basically that we're like a wraparound service that works with schools to support. So we partner with schools to provide that targeted support. We provide high quality advice and professional learning to support improved student outcomes. And as you can see here on the wheel that's on the slide there at the moment, it gives you some examples of supports that are in place for students in New South Wales Department of Education schools. Next slide. Thank you, Belinda.
5 minutes.
Thank you. So all schools in the Department of Education are able to access a range of resources to support students with additional learning and support needs. Students are provided with personalised learning and support in a range of ways. This may include changes that teachers make to teaching and learning programs, access to staff who can support your child, and additional assistance in the classroom from support staff. Planning ahead helps every child enjoy a smooth transition to school. So your preschool or other early childhood service can support, and they may also be supporting your child at the moment through itinerant support and early intervention. The school also has access to flexible support, which is managed by the school, that allows them to respond directly to individual needs of your child and students in that school. In all New South Wales primary schools, we have a learning and support team who work directly with students and teachers to identify learning needs, develop plans, and to monitor support. I'm going to go to the next slide just because I'm conscious of time. So I'll just go on to that next slide there if we could, Belinda. Terrific. So your school learning and support team that are in a school will assist families to access support from within the school if you are requiring additional support for your child. So in the first instance, they will assist with identifying and then applying for appropriate specialist provisions or services. So in the Department of Education, we have an access request, which you can see on the screen at the moment, which if you are after, if your child has a disability confirmation and you are looking at getting extra funding or looking at a support class in a mainstream school or a school for specific purposes for your child, then that is a conversation that's had with the learning and support team in your school. And then they go to a panel. So we have 2 panels each term where students who have been identified at their school and parents have been consulted go to panel, and a group of panel members, we just had a panel last week, actually look at placing students in those support classes or in a school for specific purposes. It's important to note that not all applications result in a placement offer, and if it is something that you are looking at with your local school, the access request allows 3 provisions to be requested, and they are considered in order of priority. This process is only relevant for students who have moderate to high educational needs directly related to a confirmed disability, and those needs cannot be met from resources within their school. Next slide. Thank you, Belinda. I know I'm just racing through these last few because I'm just conscious of the time. And for a focus on kindergarten, and lots of you will be going to orientation sessions and meeting with your child's local school where they will talk about that core focus of kindergarten. So in the Department of Education, early stage 1, which is kindergarten, will provide that strong foundation for learning and development through a play-based approach. This includes fostering children's sense of identity, their connection to world around them, well-being, confidence, and communication skills. The curriculum also emphasises developing foundational skills in literacy and numeracy, as well as working on those social and emotional skills. Thanks, Belinda. I'm just going to go past that one, Belinda, and I'll just go through to the next slide after that one. So what to expect in the first few weeks of school. So school is a major lifestyle change for most children. There are as many reactions to starting school as there are children entering school. It is dependent on their previous experience. Have they attended preschool? Do they have siblings who are already at school? Perhaps they've been with you as a parent on canteen duty prior to starting, so they're very aware of what that environment looks like. Are they social, shy, confident, active, curious, or a homebody? Some students or children starting school might be confused. What do you mean I have to go every day? They might be elated and love it from the first minute they walk through the gate. Whatever the individual circumstance, we recommend in all department schools that you clear your calendar for that first few weeks of school. You provide opportunities for downtime and fun activities. And the most difficult of all, don't interrogate them about what they have done at school. Ask them about the nicest part of their day, the funniest or a favourite part of the day, and allow them to speak as much or as little as they wish to. It's a very exhausting for students those first few weeks, so it is really important that you make time and clear that calendar of all those extracurricular activities. Thanks, Belinda.
It's time.
Thank you. I think it's the last slide. So while all the focus, and we've talked about supporting your child, it is also very important that you look after you at this time. For many parents, it's a huge change, particularly if it's your first child starting school. So it can be a very emotional time for you also. While we trust that the school will care for your child and keep them safe, it can be difficult to let go. So if your child is sad and finding it hard to separate from you, or if your child goes off too happily without a second glance, or if you are feeling emotional about your child starting school, make sure you plan also something to do and to keep yourself busy. If you're not at work, then organise to catch up with somebody, catch up for a coffee, catch up with friends, and to also focus on your own well-being. I've just put up the last slide just to go through, Belinda. Sorry, thank you. Just if you have any questions, to contact and reach out to your local school, even if you haven't yet enrolled your child. They are always happy to answer any questions that you have. Team Around a School and Learning and Wellbeing, where I work, you can reach out to that number that's on the screen, and we can also support with any questions that you might have in regard to your child starting in a Department of Education school next year or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. And again, more information on families, how you can support your child and yourselves be ready for learning in this process. But two key things that came out for me were for a successful, smooth transition, in that happening where everybody is ready and on board, you're helping your child be confident in their new learning environment. If they're at home or if they're at preschool, that is a very close, protected environment. School is not just about the classroom, it's about the playground as well. So it's not just being one of, say, 20 or 30 children in the classroom, but it's now potentially hundreds in a playground. So the more familiar they are, the better it is for your child. It's not to say that every child's going to settle perfectly. There may be some challenges, but preparation is definitely helpful. So orientation is key. And if you feel like you need extra orientation, either yourself or your child, talk to the school and ask, no matter which system they're going to. You can only ask the question. It'll benefit the school as much as it will benefit your child. And the other thing I wanted to pick up was the core focus in kindergarten, not just being literacy and numeracy. Yes, that's an important aspect, but there is so much more emphasis placed on your child's social skills, their emotional skills, and their independence. Because again, it's not just about how they cope in that classroom, it's how they cope when they're out there in that playground too. So think about that and what your child needs to do to help look after themselves when they are one of hundreds and a couple of teachers floating around. What can they do for themselves? How can they ask for help? Those kind of things. So, Alison, thank you very, very much. And our final presenters, Jelan and Helen from Catholic Schools, I will hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Belinda. I'm just going to share my screen. And here we go. So good evening, everybody, and we're very pleased to be here with you to talk about a few things in preparing for getting ready for school. So what we're going to talk about, my name's Joanne, and I'm with Helen Lee, who will come in a little bit later. We're going to talk to you about, and we've already touched on this, the importance of play and the importance of routines, which we've talked a little bit about. And as Belinda just said, that independence. So we're just going to unpack that a little bit more. So starting with play, we know that the growth in brain development is at its peak in early childhood. And as such, it's highly influenced by the environment and the people around in the environment. So it's about a time of social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development in your children, probably more so than the rest of their life, or definitely more so than the rest of their life. So in Sydney Catholic schools, we recognise that, like the other systems of schools, that early years, pre-kindergarten to year 4, is that early childhood period. So let's start with play. So when we talk about play here, we're talking about unstructured and free play. Yes, there's structured play and activities, but what we want to focus on and spotlight is that structured free play. And play helps children make sense of the world. And engaging in play is probably one of the best ways to prepare your child for school. By play, as we said, it's unstructured play. And play is often referred to as a break from learning, but actually play is learning. So just going on to our next slide there. So as we said, play is serious learning, not just a relief from learning. And we often think getting ready for school is about, oh, but my child doesn't know their alphabet, or my child can't write numbers yet. It's actually, that's our job. It's actually educators' job to do that. So the more time they have in that unstructured play environment, the better in their preparation. And what we know is that in Australia, every 3 years, there's an Australian Early Development Census is done, and the kindergarten teachers do this. And the last report in 2024 identified and captured data on 5 key areas of early childhood development that are really key to predicting later mental health, well-being, and positive educational outcomes. So on the next slide, these are those 5 key areas, and I'm sure as parents they're no surprise to you. We know as parents that their physical health is important. We know social competence, emotional maturity, and language and cognitive skills are all important. So, knowing that, what does play do in developing these important skills and domains? Well, play helps with coordination skills. It helps with balance. It helps with strength. Play develops that social competence. It's about turn taking and discussing. It's emotional maturity, about problem solving. There's also that language development, listening and responding to each other. It's helping children understand the sounds in their language. And it helps build vocab and shared ideas. So, how many of you can put your thumbs up in the chat if you like, child says, I'm bored. I know my children certainly said that. And I know when my children were young and were on long car trips, that's when they particularly got bored. And but through boredom, great things happen. We play I Spy, so much learning. We do lots and lots of creativity, lots of creativity happens when we're bored. And pushing through that boredom is where we see that amazing creative, all those wonderful things that we want to see developed in early childhood. So it's been mentioned a few times, the Raising Children Network, and we all agree that the Raising Children Network has some great ideas for us as parents. So let's just click onto the little video here, because they can say it a lot better than I can.
Best way to support your child's play is to give them some time and some space. And I'm not talking about the ultimate space for play. Whatever space you have is good. What we need to think about is allowing children some sort of unrestricted movement. Even if we've got a very small area that we feel, okay, I feel confident enough that there's no dangerous things in this room, I can allow my child to have some unrestricted time to play and explore in this space. And if you add something really simple like a cardboard box into that space, suddenly it's not just a tiny lounge room, it's a cubby house for a doll, it's a race car, and they're zooming down the highway. So through their imagination, a small space can become all sorts of things if we give them that time and that sort of mental space, really, to transform whatever physical space you have into the world of play. We just need to remember that kids need downtime. They don't need every single moment of their life to be scheduled. Ideally, we're giving kids at least a few hours, depending on their age, to be playing freely. They need that totally unstructured time so that they can lead what they want to explore and do.
What's that? Oh.
Okay, so we thought you've done a lot of listening this evening, so we thought it might be an opportunity to share some ideas in the chat about what your child likes doing during their free play. So if you go down to the chat button at the bottom of your screen, we've been posting things in the chat, so now it's your turn. Feel free to just, there's some ideas on the screen, just pop some ideas in there. And any of the participants of the presentation, you're free to pop some ideas in as well.
You're asking me to go back many, many, many years now.
And it's okay if you haven't, but you know, some of the, it's a bit like when you let them loose in the plastic straw, you know, or and they build an obstacle course with your Tupperware around the living room, all those sorts of things. But so much learning goes on there. Okay, I don't see if is there anything in the chat? No, that's okay. But I'm sure you've got some great ideas. But as I said, we never underestimate the importance of not having a toy from Target or Kmart, but just what's around the house, what's in the garden, picking up sticks, shells, any of those things. So much imagination goes on.
So, Lan, I just wanted to say the participants have noted that the chat was disabled, so they weren't ignoring your request.
Oh, thank you.
Unfortunately, it was set up to be disabled. So thank you for letting me know, Claire and Juliet.
That's okay. That's fine. Thank you. And thank you for having a go. So in the words of Albert Einstein, apparently, play is the highest form of research. And in actual fact, it's action research as they're learning, and so much learning. And I think in our highly schedulized society where we have to go to swimming lessons and this and gym and sometimes we lose sight of how much learning takes place in that unstructured boredom. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about really quickly, and this has already been touched on as well, is routines. And I know a few people have mentioned visual schedules and things like this. But even just practicing routines, and I know, and I'll go back to my parenting, and I didn't do this very well because I was always trying to work out how to put the routine in place when we actually had to be out the door in 5 minutes and shoes were still somewhere in the house that we couldn't find. So I learned the hard way that probably practicing routines, to do it when we're not time bound is probably the best advice I can give. So yes, and we've already mentioned this, so I'll quickly go through it. Setting up that morning and evening routine as much as possible, and there's always changes, but as much as possible to the same time each day, and including that bedtime story in that downtime. So we like to think of routines help the brain save energy. When we know what's coming next, we don't have to spend effort thinking about every little step. It frees up our brains, our minds to focus more on the important things like learning and being creative. And what we know is that when there's a routine, it helps us feel safe and secure. And that's why many children love school, because it's so predictable, right? So the more predictable things are, the more safe and secure we feel, and that's our well-being. So I think it's like a phone with lots of apps running. So if each app takes up a little bit of battery life on your phone, which is all these things happening without routine, then there's the child has to remember lots of small tasks like apps open, running. Did I do this? Did I do that? Where are my shoes? What's the plan for tomorrow? It's like having all those apps open, and it slows down your device. So it slows down our brain, and our brain hasn't got that full capacity to learn new things, and there's going to be a lot of new things to learn at school. So the more routines you can set up prior to school, and we've talked about that, a few people have talked about that, the better. Okay, and you can't put this in the chat because it's disabled, but so some of the things that you could do include, and we've talked about this already, reading a book at bedtime, packing away toys, setting those expectations, because that's what the teacher's going to expect them to do when they get to school, taking care of their equipment, packing things away. And I have to say, with routines, I probably was really bad at this with my children. I just would get them dressed, do up the buttons because it was quicker and easier. And actually, I think my son had Velcro shoes till he was about 9 because I just couldn't cope with the learning to tie shoelaces. But what I learned was they love being these routines, and actually I've made a rod for my own back, really. So yeah, I couldn't stress more the importance of that. So I am going to hand over to Helen now, who's going to talk a little bit more about independence. Thanks, Helen.
Thanks, Joanne, and thank you all for being here tonight and staying with us until this very last section. So I'm going to talk a little bit about independence, and I'll get Joanne to move the slides for me rather than swapping the share. So our job, thanks, Joanne. Our job as parents is to guide our children from total dependence as newborns to independence. And it starts small. So, we start off by tying their shoelaces and we pour their milk. We help. And it's all very natural, being helpful and loving. And this might sound a little bit like tough love, but it's important that we don't do for our children what they can do for themselves. So over time, those quick favors turn into habits, and suddenly our children expect that help, or they could start believing that they can't do it themselves. Of course, helping is part of parenting, so we zip up their coats, we pour their cereal, and we carry their backpack sometimes. But sometimes if we regularly do these things that our children are capable of, we unintentionally stall their independence. So following on from Gillian, you might be wondering, how do we get out the door? How are we supposed to do this? How are we supposed to get things done completely and efficiently?
5
So
minutes.
thanks, Peter. So we really need to take that time when it's not rush hour to teach our children to do some things for themselves, and to develop their independence. And of course, here's the playground. We don't expect children to get to the top of the playground the first time. You know, it's small steps towards that independence. But building those small steps, taking little steps and learning the next steps. You know, not tying their shoelaces from the start, but maybe finishing off the rabbit ears or zipping up that last bit of their jacket before doing a little bit more before clipping it at the bottom. Helps them to feel very puffed up with their own achievements and their achievement of those little steps along the way. Sometimes this can be hard for us to watch our children navigate these steps, but it's all very important as they build their own understanding of themselves and learn their confidence and independence. And that's really what we all want for our children, isn't it? So our next slide would also be a chat, but seeing as we're not putting anything in the chat, have a think about, maybe jot down one thing that you think your child could start doing on their own that you might already be doing for them, and having that little bit of tough love that lets them do something, even if it takes a little bit longer for a start or a little bit messier for a start. So maybe a note to self about one more thing. Of course, that will build and help you in the long run. So with the shortness of time, let's move on to how you could enroll in a Sydney Catholic schools. And it's always terrifying to go live on screen. But if Gillian opens this up, you can see that it's a website. If you would like to enroll in a school, it's all online. So the enrolment application is online. And if you open up Find Your Nearest School, just like AIS and Department of Education. And Gillian, could you type in the search address Lewisham? And all of a sudden, a whole bunch of schools pops up, just like the other sites. If you hover over that indicator there, it should pop up. It will show the school that's in Lewisham. It's Eileen O'Connor Catholic College, and we're going to highlight that one for you in a minute. But you can see all the other neighbourhood schools, because sometimes it might not be in your suburb, but it still might be closer. So it's not restricted by boundary. So if we move on to the next slide, it would be showing that you can enroll online. We are still taking enrolments for kindy, even though the enrolment period is the open days are in February and March. The enrolment period is in March onwards. There are still a few vacancies in kindergarten for next year. When Gillian typed in Lewisham, that is our one specialist setting. And the Eileen O'Connor Catholic College is a K-12 school, and it specialises in students with mild to moderate disability, with complex other disabilities. And it's a magnificent setting in Lewisham. And for that, there's an enrolment online specifically for Eileen O'Connor, if that is what you're looking for. So for any of our schools, the idea is to enrol online, and you can actually select not just the one school that you want, but you can put a second and third preference. So if the school closest to you fills up really quickly with the children in the closest vicinity, there will also be an automatic second and third option available for you. So it's all online. Of course, that is followed up by an interview with the principal and a chat about your child's particular needs and adjustments. And finally, I think we have put in a few references from our input today. These are our favourite ones. So I hope you can take some time when it's not such a busy time of night to look into some of these areas and play some videos, look at the resources. And finally, I think it just says thank you so that we can allow some time for you to ask us all those tricky questions that you've been putting in the Q&A. Thank goodness that one worked, hey? So back to you, Belinda and Peter.
Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation too. And welcome to our presenting team, both Joanne and Helen. So in regards to routine, some key points that I picked out there was for families, for those long-term practices, when you want to get things right for when you start school, start the year before. Start putting them to bed early the year before. Start waking them up early the year before, so that by the time you start school, those routines are in place and they're second nature. So start the year before. Then when you do start school, prepare the night before for the next day. So the night before, check those uniforms are there. Check the food that you need to be packing or getting your child to pack the next morning is there. But do as much as you can the night before, anything to help those mornings get going. And in regards to the independence, so important. A lot of parents and grandparents, when they're involved as well, show their love by doing. We do for our children because we love them. We're not asking you to stop loving them any less, but we're asking you, suggesting to you to give them room to do for themselves, because that will actually help your child when they need those skills at school. You're not going to be there to break the food up for them or fix their clothes for them at school. So show them your love by helping them do for themselves as well. Presenters, thank you so much for that valuable information. Just before we start our questions, Peter, I'm going to ask you to run the final poll. In regards to the feedback form, I'm concerned about the chat not being enabled. So participants, I'm going to get all the links that were put in the chat to be sent out to everybody that registered for this evening. So please note, all that information will be sent out to you. And you would have registered because you are attending here, so you will get all that. Great, we've got confidence increased so far. Very confident as well. Wonderful. At the moment, we don't have any who are not confident or don't know. So for those of you that are sharing your answers in the poll, it looks like your confidence has increased for most of you, if not all of you, which is great to see. Oh, we do have one not confident yet. Fair enough. We do have a lot of questions, so I am going to go to the Q&A. Just to also let you know, we do have a follow-up session that Early Ed will be running from today. So again, everybody who has registered will get a link. It will be hosted by Early Ed, and I think a lot of these questions are going to be answered in the pop-up session, which will be around a lunchtime session midweek. We will send you an invitation and we will send the link out to you as well. Thank you, Peter. Now, presenters, if you could turn off your microphones, I'm happy for you to answer these questions as we go. Firstly, if a child date of birth is December 21, what month of the year can they start school and in which grade will they be joining? I believe Alison has addressed that, starting school at the start of the year.
Yeah,
and
starting
will be
school
starting
at the start of the year. All children must be in compulsory schooling by their 6th birthday. So children can start kindergarten at the beginning of the school year if they turn 5 on or before the 31st of July that year. So doing my maths here tonight, so December 21, well, clearly they'd be starting in kindergarten and they'd be starting when they're 5 years old. If they've turned 5, so they would be turning 5 at the end of 2026. So starting in kindergarten at the beginning of 27, they would be as a 5-year-old. Is your option there. Otherwise, it's holding back for that another year to start when they're 6 years old.
Thank you, Alison.
That's all right.
And if you have a smartphone, please feel free to scan the QR code and give us your feedback, because it will be for the benefit of future webinars. Okay, let's see, my son is autistic level 3. I think there was a follow-up to this, and this family wasn't sure if they should attend mainstream. They're being told not to, or it's being suggested that's not the best for their child, and it's being suggested to go to a support unit. If he doesn't get a spot in a support unit, will that cause regression? And will starting school be a waste of time and resources?
I'm happy to just touch on funding. So, and I think I might have rushed through that a little bit just due to time, but if a child in the Department of Education, we can also put in an access request for integration funding. So for a child with a disability, if they don't get a place in a support unit, then they can be supported in their mainstream school through funding, and that funding can be used to support them in the classroom, in the playground. So it's a conversation you can have with your school, but rest assured that that process and that integration funding, a lot of students use that for their whole primary schooling because they choose to not go into a support class. However, that funding can be used in the interim while waiting for a support class to become available, for a place to become available.
And on a broader note, for whatever school your child goes to, you can always ask the individual school and your therapists about doing therapy in school, even if it is just to start the child in that learning environment, how they can adapt and how the school can adapt to them. Some schools are all for it, some schools are not. Again, it's an individual conversation to have with the school and with your therapists. Does the support unit also provide therapy, or is it pure education? My understanding is in a support unit, they provide an education. Some school for specific purposes provide therapies. But panelists, do you have an answer different to that? Support units providing therapies?
I'd have to come back to you on that one, Belinda. I think your answer would be exactly what I would have said.
Yeah.
Because they're running within a mainstream school, so they are following curriculum and providing supports within that school, but yeah.
Not therapies as such. So if you have individual therapists that support your child, again, conversation with the school. The next question is similar to what we've had. My son turned 6 in mid-June, so I don't have to send him to school until he is 6 if he doesn't get a spot in a support unit. Is that correct?
So I think, as I said, there's that 6 months afterwards, but again, it's putting in an exemption. So your local school, you would have to go to your local school. They put in an exemption of enrolment form. It goes to an education director. They approve it or they don't approve it. So it doesn't sit with the school as such. So it goes up to an education director for that particular area. So that 6-month period, usually that exemption will go in. So when was that one again, Belinda? I'm just looking at the question. So it was a June birthday?
6 in June, yes.
Yeah. So again, and those reasons that'll be on a handout for an exemption from enrolment came down to, and I'm happy to read them out again, but I know we're short for time. The first was age, but again, they needed to be engaged in full-time preschool education, or full or part-time accredited preschool programs for students with disabilities, leading to an enrolment and full-time attendance no later than 6 months after their 6th birthday. And you would be required to provide proof of enrolment and participation in a preschool to your local school. And the second reason was around health, social needs or disability of a child necessitating that continuation of an individual program with medical specialists. And again, that's no longer than 6 months after that 6th birthday.
Thank you, Alison.
That's right.
There are two questions that might be focused at Catholic schools. One is, do all schools use the digital statement? So that would include, yes, great. Catholic schools.
No, we
No?
don't
Oh,
use the
sorry.
digital transition statement. And someone else asked, do we use the Best Start kindergarten assessment? And at this stage, Sydney Catholic Schools doesn't, but different dioceses do different things. So yes, that is the answer to that one. And there's
Thank
also
you.
another Catholic question from Claire. I think
Yes.
the answer to that one is each student is catered for case by case. And
Oh, so this is this the question from Deb in regards to Catholic schools supporting neurodivergent children?
yes,
Yeah,
Deb
Claire
and also
Deb
Claire.
both asked those. Okay, sorry. Yes, I see.
Yep.
Okay. In regards to the digital statement not being used by some of the schools that Joanne and Helen were talking about, that doesn't mean as a family that you can't put a portfolio together. You can access the you can access the transition to school statement through the Department of Education website. It may not be the digital statement, but you can get a PDF.
You can.
Yeah, great,
Yep.
excellent.
Mhm.
So you can use those same questions to put a portfolio together. And especially if you're not attending an early childhood service. Generally, all early childhood services will put something together for the schools if they are not doing the digital statement. So if you're not attending a service and you want to put something together as a parent or build up what the preschool is doing, you can use the PDF statement as a guideline. So I'm just trying to make sure I look at these questions. What is reasonable support for an autistic child in mainstream school? More importantly, what is considered reasonable support? I'm going to say that is probably a team around the child conversation to have with the school, yourself, any supports that you've already got in place with your child, and your child, if they can contribute as well, telling you or letting you know in their way what they are able to engage with and not. You will know by observing their behaviour, by their attempts of communication. But I would say that is definitely a team around the child, because is your child suitable for that school as much as is that school suitable for your child? It needs to go both ways, for you as a parent to be comfortable and for your child to be supported in that learning environment, Claire. But panelists, please, if you've got more to add to that.
I think you answered everything there. I think, yeah.
Okay.
And like you said, within the school, you have that learning and support team that can provide support for students and families, the school counselling team. So there is that wraparound support within the school.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Dina has asked a question in regards to specifically to her child, and there's a few things there that you can see. But her question is, I'm just scrolling through to the end, still not sure if it's better to put a little one in kindy at 5 or 6, since academically they're fine. It's just communication and social skills are currently what we're working on. Dina, I'm going to say you saw that the core skills needed weren't just the literacy and numeracy, it's the social, emotional and independence. Again, it looks like you've got some great supports around your child. When you know what school you would like to send your child to, maybe involve them on that conversation as well. I guess depending around the date of birth for your child and the legalities around that will also contribute to that decision. Panelists, do you have anything else to add to that? Okay. But Dina, if you do have further questions, feel free to contact us, services at Early Ed, and we can take that up further with you. Julia, my son's daycare has said he will be fine academically, but they're not sure socially. Again, similar question. If he's held back, will this mean he will get bored and act up at school as the learning content will not push him? Okay. Without knowing your child, Julia, if you decide to keep him at preschool or daycare for an extra year, or if you decide not to send him, ensure that wherever he is stimulating him at his level. If you decide to send him to school, he's fine academically, but it's a social school, have those conversations and share those concerns with the school that's involved. Maybe help through orientation, pick out some things that you could support him with. Those teachers can possibly give you some tips or areas to focus on, and then find ways to support your child in social settings like play groups or library groups, or even at the parks on weekends if you work full time and you can't get him to those other things. Find opportunities in the community where you can build on those social skills that you're working on. But if he's at a daycare, they should be doing that. Just ensure that they cater for him individually. Okay. Can the Catholic team please provide insight into Catholic approach to supporting children with a need? I think we might have done that, Claire, but if you feel like you need additional information, especially because of time, please contact us and we will definitely ask the presenters to follow that up for you. Child not toilet trained, how will this be supported in school? Florence, if you could let me know the schools that you're interested in your child attending, whether it's an independent Catholic or a Department of Ed school, we can definitely reach out to those presenters, but speaking specifically to the school about that and what supports you might need to put in place around that before starting school is probably a more direct answer for you. What does great look like in terms of engagement with the school the year before starting kindy? I have a son who is ASD level 2. We've already met with mainstream school. We're intending to send him to, and they are starting to engage with his preschool and our support network, OT, speech, etc. Is there anything else we should be doing? Presenters, do you have any other suggestions on what this family could already be doing? They're engaging with their team around the child, the school, and the early childhood centre. I guess, Hayden, getting a lot of feedback along the way in what is working and not working. So when you say what does great look like, it's where is your child most comfortable? Where is their optimal performance when you are doing that handover? Where are they mostly regulated? Are those supports in place for your child? Are you feeling safe and secure that this is preparing? We looked at those ready. Is your child being ready? The school is being ready. It looks like you're being ready. It looks like the team around the child is being ready. Seeing how that all works together for your child to perform the best that they can would probably be a suggestion from myself. We are the questions are coming through, but I'm conscious it's now 8:40 and these presenters have already gone over time. Like I said, Early Ed will not let your questions go unanswered. Whatever we haven't been able to address here, we will definitely go back and spend the next week following up with you and for you. Presenters, thank you so much for volunteering this evening and sharing the valuable information that you shared. Peter, thank you so much for manning everything in the background. You've done an amazing job keeping the night flowing. Participants, thank you so much for being here with us, staying over time, listening to the responses and getting this information. services@earlyed.com.au. Please reach out if there is anything else that you are looking for. And we look forward to hopefully working with you and possibly attending the pop-in lunchtime chat that we will be following up with. Like I said, everybody that's registered this evening will receive this information and will receive a link so that you can register for this chat.
And thanks, Belinda, for hosting the webinar.
My pleasure. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you all again. Good night.